You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Rod Mahood, your in-game voice of the Niagara IceDogs, and you're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your podcast source for all game analysis, team interviews, and up-to-date news regarding the Niagara IceDogs.
Perlini! Overtime! IceDogs win! They score! Verhage was also jamming away. It's a powerplay goal for the IceDogs. And they score! Hosang, first goal as an IceDog. Strom stops Shipley. Richie scores! Gets it to Akil Thomas. Thomas has the angle coming in. He scores!
And welcome into another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in their 3 great Niagara region locations. Thank you to those that are tuned in on our video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, smash that bell, stay up to date with all of our video coverage here on the network with a variety of different shows. And thank you to those that choose to listen to us in your favorite on-demand audio platform, our audio peeps. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, you can give the Dog Pound Podcast a follow on X at Dog Pound Podcast to update with all of our news and fan polls for our shows that we're going to get into today as well. You can also give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network for all of our short reels and content. Christian Simmons and Brandon Caputo are with you to discuss the IceDogs weekend up in Ottawa and Kingston. That did not fare well, as Christian's already shaking his head. Not results, Christian. The snow came and gone down here in Niagara, which was a good thing. We thought we were going to get winter wonderland, and it lasted a couple days, and then the rain kind of took it away. I don't know what the IceDogs went up to in the northeastern Ontario, I guess you can call it, in the nation's capital. But, 2 results that we'll get into. We'll also hear about Krys Barch's comments on the weekend as well via our friend and colleague Bill Potters from BPSN, who was able to speak with him earlier today. This comes out on the Monday. So, Christian, if there's anything else you want to mention before we get going here, we got a lot to discuss for the IceDogs, and we're going to be as objective as possible, but not the November that they'd want to, I guess, start off half the month with here.
No, for sure. And we're going to get into it. Like you said, we'll talk about it. There's a lot of stuff that's just not ideal. And I think for, a team that, a month ago was sitting at the top of the power rankings in the Ontario Hockey League with all these expectations, like, oh boy, look at this team. The IceDogs are going to be like, it was such a high to start the season. And I think that's why, at this point, there's a little bit of a slump. There's a negative feeling that has started to waft over, that dark cloud, it has kind of found a home, over the Meridian Center over the last couple of weeks. But, like anything else, there's still positives, and we're going to take them. But yeah, I will mention that the Bills won on Sunday. So, if we're looking for positives, we'll take that. But yeah, like it's part of hockey, and we'll break it down. There's definitely some things that I don't like, and that's putting it mildly. There's definitely some gaping holes. We've gone very slowly from a cheddar to a Swiss cheese over the last couple of weeks. There's some pretty significant holes in different spots that, this team really needs to find a gap for, or find a fill. You know what I mean? And we'll break them down, but it's unfortunate because, there was a 5-game winning streak and now it's a 4-game losing streak. And it's like, it's like when you have the best cake of your life and then the first taste is amazing, and then that aftertaste just comes around the corner, and it's like, oh boy, like that's kind of where we're at. Like for me, it's like, we had the appetizer was great, half of the entree was great, and then the dessert sucked. Like, it was the worst dessert. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm a little bit stung. I'm kind of hurting after the last couple of weeks, but we'll work through those feelings. We're gonna recap both of the games today, so we'll get into some highlights. We'll get into who played well, kind of what's happening statistically. But yeah, just a kind of a bad taste in your mouth after 2 weeks of IceDogs hockey.
Yeah, and a bad taste in my mouth after my Falcons lost back-to-back games in overtime the last 2 weeks. And
yeah, you know what? You got to stop cheering for bad teams. Buffalo, Atlanta. You know what? I can't say anything because the Leafs suck. You know what I mean? Like,
you want to roll that back there, sir? I don't think
you and I both
playing too well.
That's, you know what? That's fair. You guys are going to be 31st though, and the Leafs will be 30th. So at least we won't be last.
Oh.
We won't be last, but yes, the Leafs are awful, but that's not, that's for Sportsnet has podcasts on Leafs talk. So we're not going to get into that.
That's the most credit they deserve on this show, but
that's it. That's it.
But yeah, I mean, when you look at November, Christian, and we're a fourth into the season now, basically, and yeah, it's been a really tough month of November. Like, they haven't won since that Brampton game, which was back in October. And again, October 31st was their last win. And you mentioned like that 5-game heater they were on. You were feeling really high. And again, this is part of a 68-game season in junior hockey where you gotta be able to fight through funks like this. And now you go 5-0 in your first 5, 0-5 in your next 5. One of them, you most likely should have got the win against Ottawa and let that one sort of slip away late. You got a point. You also got a point in Kingston as well. But when you look at it, picking up 2 of 10 points, especially with the way that some of the teams are playing within your division, and you kind of wanted to have that buffer with the good start that you had. Now Barrie is technically ahead of Niagara by 2 points within the division. So you look at it, North Bay is also tied with Niagara, even though Niagara has a game in hand. So when you look at it, you knew it wasn't going to be a cakewalk in the Central, and we know Brantford and what they're doing. But again, they're in the East Division, which is still the same conference. But again, when you look at it, Barrie's 7-0, 1-1 in their last 10, 7-1, 1-1, excuse me. So the IceDogs got to start playing better hockey really soon.
Yeah, no, and let's go back to that last 10 graphic for a second, Brandon, if you want to flip it back for our viewers on YouTube here. If you are listening to the audio podcast, we appreciate your listenership, but we're going to walk through this graphic here. This is, what I noted. Like, that's a 5-game winning streak, but who are you playing? Like, you play Brampton twice, you 3 times, you play Brampton 3 times, and you play Kingston, which is a tough game, which they won, and that was a close one. They scored that, 2 goals in the third period. That one was kind of a toss-up, and then they beat Erie. It's like, and you know what? For me, like, watching some of those games, I don't feel that the IceDogs have been dominant over that stretch. Like, they won games on the scoreboard and on the score sheet, but like, there's other things that need to be cleaned up. They weren't dominant wins by any stretch. And then, over the last 5, you got North Bay, Ottawa, Erie, which, that's a kind of a bullet to the head, and then Kingston and Ottawa again. So, the last 5, you got tougher opponents. And then, the previous 5, a little bit of a weaker schedule, and you find a way to pull them out. But like I said, not convincingly. Yeah, like, there's a case here that, their last 10 games haven't been fantastic. It seems to be kind of a reoccurring thing. They get outshot. They get outworked. The forecheck isn't there. The defensive... They don't score the first goal. The defensive accountability, the responsibility in your own zone, in and around your net, it's not there. So those things are they're burning. They hurt. At what point do you stop doing the same thing? It's how many times are you going to put your hand on the stove, without putting on the oven mitts? You learn at a young age. You don't do things that hurt. As you grow up, you identify, okay, you know what? I'm not going to walk into oncoming traffic because that's probably going to hurt if I get smoked by a car. So, and that's supposed to be an analogy. Maybe it's a really bad one, but I feel like the IceDogs are not making adjustments. I see the same mistakes and I see them night in, night out. And, again, there's a new coaching staff, but how long are those excuses going to, hold water? How long can we say it's early in the season? We talked about this last show. Like, we're 20 games into the season, guys. We're 20 games in. It's not the beginning of the year. It's not early anymore, right? So here we go again. Tangent. Christian negative tangent time, I guess. But that's where I'm at. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to agree with me, and maybe some people that don't, but it's time to make adjustments. Let's learn from our mistakes. There's 48 games left, 48 games left, where we need to start changing some of these things. And, it's interesting. We talked a little bit about, kind of the separation that's happening in the Central now. Like Barrie is overtaking them. North Bay is now overtaking them. They're losing spots in the East. Like, we've talked a lot about this, in previous shows. Liam Spencer talked about it. Like it's good to be getting monkeys off your back at this stage when, the hockey's less important, as opposed to when you're playing in March. But the hockey is still important now. Like, you give up 10 points over the last 5 games. That's a huge margin. That's a huge margin in the standings. So I think, it's time to, start taking accountability. We can't be saying anymore that, it's still early, because it's not.
Yeah.
Third of the season's gone.
We're going to start playing some of these highlights again from the Kingston game first. And again, for you guys listening in audio, we're sort of just going over the game highlights from the Kingston Frontenacs and the Ottawa 67s games, but we can continue to sort of just talk in general, Christian, while we watch this through. And again, when you looked at that Kingston game and just a bad start again, the IceDogs don't get the first goal. They give up a rebound. Kingston gets the first goal. When you look at it here, Jacob Battaglia takes a shot, gets his own rebound. And it's just like guys just sort of not really knowing the defensive assignment on that play.
Where are you? Where is the coverage? Right. And where's the positioning?
I do have to say, though, these Kingston Remembrance Day jerseys were phenomenal.
Just sick jerseys.
Here was the nice goal for the IceDogs here. This was the Noah Reed goal.
Yep, and Edgar makes a great play. Look at that. Steps to the right, feeds really across. Nice
by Edgar. It was his first weekend back after winning gold for Team Red at the U17 Challenge. So you could tell he had a little bit of, jump in his step. Yermolenko started both games, by the way, but we'll get into the Ottawa game. It didn't really go his way, but he was fantastic in this game for the IceDogs. Here was Sebastian Del Oche's first career goal. Again, I'm sure that's one Gavin Betts will want back, but for Del Oche, a really nice, Yermolenko makes the save there, and then the IceDogs go down the other end, and Del Oche just takes a shot here, gets a nice pass there, I think it was from Robrick, and is able to go 5-hole on Betts. So really nice for him to get his first goal, and they just need more contributions from the back end.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, we can get into it. And we talked about this prior to, recording this show, that, there seems to be like this confusion on the back end, like who's actually supposed to be scoring. Like, the offensive guys don't have points. The defensive guys do have points. And it's like, what roles are people supposed to be filling? Like,
here was a goal late that the IceDogs gave up, like just a weird angle shot, literally as the second period was expiring when they had a 2-1 lead.
That's okay. Now we're watching this goal. Like, this is something that I wrote down in my notes for today's show. Like, I
can go back to it here.
No, it's okay. And I mean, even that one really doesn't illustrate, kind of my point, because that's a goal that, Yermo probably wants back. Like, it just gets behind him, right? Like, there's nothing you can really do about that.
Like, the period's expiring. You think you're going to go in the room with a 2-1 lead.
And you know what? Like, there's 3. Yeah, like, that's a tough one. And I apologize for those that are listening in the audio version of the podcast, because this is the time of the podcast where you guys kind of get left hung out to dry a little bit. But what we're looking at is a goal. 3 IceDogs come back, right? They're on the back check. There's 1 Kingston guy, and somehow he's able to poke the puck in behind Yermolenko. Late stages of the game, of course, that's a killer. But before we move on, I did write something down in my notes. We'll see it more in the Ottawa pack as well when we go through those highlights. So many battles were lost net front this weekend. We saw the Battaglia goal. He got his own rebound. There was a couple of goals in Ottawa. Similar situations, like coverage was lapsed out front. The passing lanes aren't being taken away. For me, that was a big one this weekend. We're not going to harp on it too much. I just wanted to put it out there. I noticed net front was an issue this weekend.
The assignments, I don't know if people didn't know exactly where their assignment was supposed to be, but again, when you're playing teams like Kingston and Ottawa that have pro style systems, this is sort of the things that happen. And again, this was really the turning point in the game. For you listening in audio, I'm narrating it for you. The IceDogs are up 3-2, 4 minutes left. They're on the power play. They are on the power play with a chance to extend the lead. And again, just, getting lazy with the puck here in the neutral zone. And then they end up giving it away. Kingston goes in on a breakaway shorthanded and scores to even the game up. Just that can't happen. The IceDogs power play is just, again, it's something that they're really trying to work through. But again, to give up a shorthanded goal when you have the lead late, that's not going to do it. And then in 3-on-3 overtime, Kingston ends up getting the winner here on a cross ice feed. And again, Yermolenko was fantastic in this game. Felt really bad for him because I think he deserved a better fate in this game, Christian. But again, Kingston wins 4-3 over the Niagara IceDogs in a game that, you really thought that after they had so much confidence beating Kingston down here in Niagara a couple weeks ago that they were going to be able to come away with the win. And again, they get a point, but that's not a point where you feel like, wow, we really earned that point tonight. It was almost, we lost that second point.
Yeah, like you lost the second point. That's very well said, Brandon. That's exactly how I would put it. If this game goes to overtime because the IceDogs scored 4 unanswered goals and tied it up in the third period, fine. I'll take that. That is a hard-fought point. They had a bounce in overtime, as we've talked about. Overtime is overtime.
Beach, pass up, Kingwell.
Sorry.
There's our Ottawa 67's broadcast crew, which I will say does a great job. They got a nice crew there. So, but yeah, this is we're taking a look at these packs again. But yeah, like it's when you lose that way and in overtime, and it's just not a good feeling. Is here you go again, giving up the first goal. Again, we're watching highlights here. So if you're listening on the audio, you're not seeing this stuff, but
you can just look up the IceDogs highlight packs from YouTube over the last 2 weeks and follow along with us if you really were that confused. But again, Ottawa opens the scoring. They get that second one, and that's where Krys Barch makes the decision to pull Yermolenko 2 goals on 3 shots. He went to him back-to-back after the game in Kingston, and that's really tough to do, especially coming off a night game into an afternoon game. So again, he just felt like he needed to make that change there. So for the IceDogs, to be down 2-0 early in the first period against a team like Ottawa, just very hard to overcome. And we're going to kind of talk about it, but they got into a lot of penalty trouble in this game. They didn't do themselves any favors discipline-wise. Ottawa had 3 5-on-3s in this game at different times in the game. One of them was for a complete 2 minutes where the IceDogs took 2 penalties on the same shift. And again, they really let this one, get away from them. And if they had any chance of coming back, because there really wasn't enough 5-on-5 sustained action here. It was and especially the third period felt like a basketball game. That was a nice goal there for Noah Reed being able to get his second goal of the weekend. But like the third period just dragged on because there were so many whistles, so many penalties. There's a 2-man advantage goal for Ottawa. Like we're going to go through it, but they lost this game 6-2, Christian.
Yeah. And it's like, again, where's the accountability? Like, I get it. This weekend was hard. 100%. I can understand that. Like we talked about it last show.
There's the net front, right? Like, look at that.
Again, and there you go. That's my point. Who's covering that guy? Zada is late on the back check. He's wide open out front. That's a missed coverage. That's a late back check. There's another right
Robo's
there.
got Charlie Robertson's got no chance on that. Like he made the initial save. Like he played great in this game in relief, by the way. Like he stopped 30 of 33, but the team in front of him just did not really give him an opportunity here. Again, the IceDogs are down 4-1. And when you're facing Dave Cameron, you might as well start the bus because he knows how to lock it down and get his players to play a certain way to really just smother and not allow the IceDogs to get many opportunities in this game. after you're down 4-1 and then continue to get into penalty trouble. Like you'll hear Krys Barch talk about it a little bit later, Christian, but we're kind of beating a dead horse here, but it's
we
it's
are
just hard watching the highlights, right? Like
but I mean, like there's no horses to ride, so we're going to beat the dead horse. There's nothing else, for us to talk about besides
nice
the fact that
by Robo.
Great save.
And then here, like he makes the first
there
save.
You go again.
He made the first save.
This is what I'm talking about. Like,
and then two guys are watching the same guy. And then
where is anybody? Where's anybody on this play? Robo makes the first one. That's his job. Second one, not his job. Who's covering that guy out front? How is he that wide open? So, again, we'll stop beating the dead horse. I'll put the boxing gloves down. But I think it's, we talked about this last show. I know I talked about this last show. We were mentioning that, these kind of weekends they test your character. What kind of team are you? Are you going to play hard competitive hockey for 12 hours on a back-to-back in Ottawa and Kingston in one of the most difficult road trips? Are you going to be able to do that? The IceDogs didn't. Plain and simply put, they were not able to do that. And I think for me that's a little bit concerning that it was, one of those weekends where it could have been, the coming together of a unit. You break that 3-game losing streak. We had some success on the road. Now we're going to come home over the next few. You got the homestand coming up here at the end of November into December. They got, home games for 4 or 5 weeks. It's, these are, the points that you really want to get, not just for the standings and, the statistical side of things, but also for the character of your team, the chemistry in the group. Like you go out on road trips like that, in tough times, to find difficult wins is always, a boost, for your team, and they weren't able to take advantage. And this is the second time, on a road trip like that. They did it in Windsor and Sarnia, and now they did it again, Ottawa and Kingston. They weren't able to find victories on those long, difficult road trips. And I don't know if that's something to be concerned about. Like, we would have to look at the schedule to say, how many more times is this going to happen where they're going to go on the road and get smoked. I will say before we get to our interview, which I'm sure is next, or we'll take a break.
We're going to go over our weekly statistics.
Before we do that, and this is a good segue because it's also statistics. So in the last week, we'll take a look at this. The Niagara IceDogs have given up. Let's go the last 2 weeks. They've given up 15 goals in 3 games. That's not good enough.
Yep.
That is not good enough. Like, and are we going to really sit here and say that that's Yarmolenko and Robertson? Are we? I don't think you and I could collectively agree on that. I don't think any of the fans could agree that this is a goaltending situation. So for me, that was another thing that stood out. They're giving up too many goals. They're not defensively accountable.
Yeah, and it's been a struggle, and we got our fan poll later in segment 2 where we're going to go over sort of, I guess, all the stems leading to what's happened up to their lack of success over the month of November. But you saw in the last bit of the highlight pack, if you're watching on video, that the IceDogs pulled the goalie and did get a goal technically with a man advantage, but it was with an empty net. So again, that doesn't count as a power play goal, but it was a nice play by Zada down low to find, Riley Patterson cutting in back door. And like, you'd love the IceDogs to be able to do that with more regularity. So again, we're going to go over the weekly statistics here. And again, they're brought to you by J&O Flooring. And when you look at it, I've got a graphic up on the screen for you guys. If not, I'll narrate it for you guys in the audio version for you to follow along. The IceDogs had 63 shots for, 73 against. They were 0 for 7 on the power play. That we'll get into. I'm sure they were 9 of 11 on the penalty kill, 50 face-off wins to 57 losses. They lost 4-3 in Kingston and 6-2 in Ottawa. Yarmolenko stopped 33 of 39 shots. Robertson 30 of 33. And then the player statistics, Riley Patterson had a goal. He had 5 danger scoring chances on 10 shots, as well as 7 of 25 on the faceoff dot. So again, I'm sure he'd like to be better on the dot this week than 7 of 25, which we've seen him be real good there this year. Noah Reid, as mentioned, scored 2 goals. He had 3 danger scoring chances on 4 shots. Ryan Robrick had a goal and an assist with 4 danger scoring chances. Sebastian Del Elche got a goal and assist, 2 danger scoring chances. Ethan Zada, a pair of assists. Ryerson Edgar, a pair of assists in his return as well. He actually led the team with 6 danger scoring chances in the 2 games. Was Ethan Zada. He was 21 of 46 on the faceoff dot, and then Hayden Reed, had a couple danger scoring chances as well. Ryan Robrick had an 8-game point streak up until it was snapped against the Ottawa 67. So again, good to see him sort of find some success offensively, Christian. But anything that of note that you want to bring up there, even though again they only got 1 of 4 points overall as a team.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say before we move on that they lost in every single team statistic category this week. There's not a single one that they won. Shots on goal, lost. Power play, lost. Penalty kill, they lost. They did not win more faceoffs than their opponents, which is shocking considering their personnel. That's usually a strong point for this team. And the statistics are great. Del Elche, gets his first, and I thought Noah Reid scored a couple of beautiful goals. I guess he's the new sniper of this team. He scored a couple off the rush. I have to say, Noah Reid, good looking shot so far since the trade. So it's nice to see him get on the board. But yeah, just you look at those numbers from a team perspective. It's just. Yeah, it's not pleasing.
I do want to mention, Christian, no Kevin He this week. He was out with an illness the entire weekend. So missing out on your captain, that dynamic speed he has, I'm sure, wasn't easy as well. But the IceDogs have the guys to be able to step in. But no number 11 in the lineup definitely you could tell it made a difference.
For sure. And you sent me a text about this, during I think one of the games. Like when you take a guy with that kind of speed out of the lineup, it changes the way that your team approaches. It changes the way that your team breaks out and enters the zone, the neutral zone play. All of it changes, when you don't have a guy like Kevin He with that kind of speed. So it's absolutely a factor. Does it make 15 goals over 3 games and a 5-game losing streak excusable? No, but it's absolutely a factor. And, when he comes back, then it's, okay, well, what excuse are we going to turn to now? Right. I think, this team is starting to come back together. Ryerson Edgar comes back from the U17 World Challenge. Once you get Kevin He back, then it's, now Blake Barnes is signed. If guys are starting to come, if the team is starting to come together, we're starting to see what it's going to look like for the rest of the year. And as Brandon has pulled up here, it doesn't get any easier. It gets harder. The next couple of games this is about as difficult as a stretch, aside from putting Windsor in there. If you're playing Windsor instead of Peterborough, that could be the most difficult 4-game stretch. Both in division and out of conference and in conference games. As we take a look here, the 20th, you got Brantford, then we got Barrie, then you see Kitchener. That's going to be, probably your toughest matchup, and a team that's vying for Memorial Cup. Those are 2 teams vying for a Memorial Cup and an OHL championship. And then the Barrie Colts are the leaders of the Central Division as of today. And then Peterborough, game that you should win. Kind of a nice little a game for Ryerson Edgar in a way. That's the first overall draft pick in his class. Caden McGregor on Ryerson Edgar. So an interesting matchup there. But those 3 games
Peterborough plays hard. So if they don't come out, Peterborough can really, outwork some of these teams, because they know they're a young team, and they know they're not gonna be the most skilled team comparatively to some of these other teams. So the IceDogs can't come out with another, tough start. But again, when you're playing Brantford and Barrie and Kitchener, like these are the teams that, again, these are the results that are really going to matter in the end, because these are the types of playoff teams that you'd be playing if you want to go deep.
Yeah. And this is what we said on the last show. It's like, this is the worst time to be on a 5-game losing streak, because now you got to beat Brantford, to hold it to 5. And then you get Barrie and Kitchener. It's like there's no breaks. Like this is, you know what I mean? I feel like we're tumbling down a double black diamond. Nobody's gonna catch you. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, Brandon. Do you go skiing?
No.
If you start falling down a ski hill, no one's stopping you. Yeah, you're gonna keep going. Like it's downhill from there. And I feel like we just caught an edge at the top of a triple black because we're gonna fall here. That's like you got Brantford, Kitchener, and Barrie. I see tumbling in the near future.
Well, maybe you can play up to your opponents, and I think the IceDogs, after what they just went through, I think that they're going to be motivated to really come out and they need to have strong efforts, because if you play bad against these teams, it can get out of hand real quick. You're
going to get punished, but I do think when Kevin He comes back again, the team is there's still positives. Robrick is scoring, Kevin He is scoring at an incredible pace. Edgar continues to have a great rookie season, and Grayson Tiller on the back end leads, defensemen in scoring. Like there's lots of positives here. Then the goaltending, I thought Robertson played great this weekend. Yermolenko had a solid first half of the weekend as well. So there's positives. Got to find a way to put them together. It's like building a puzzle.
Yep, for sure. Kevin He will be back, by the way, for the game in Brantford. You'll hear from Krys Barch in segment 2, talk about life without their captain this weekend. But we're going to take a quick break on today's show. We're going to come back. We're going to get your guys' thoughts with the fan poll that we put up as well. We'll hear from IceDogs head coach Krys Barch and discuss a few other things from the weekend as well, and a recent trade for the IceDogs. So stay right here. We're right back on the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Right back after this.
Did you know that the Global Pet Food stores in the Niagara region are all independently owned by members of the local community? We believe that pets are truly part of the family and are a source of joy in everyday homes around the world. Yet that living, loving experience usually doesn't happen all on its own, but takes extra effort to create and maintain. And we want you to know that the owners and staff at Global Pet Foods are always there to help you keep it going any way we can, because we believe. Proud show sponsor of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs. We hope to see you at one of the following locations across Niagara: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, as well as 400 Scott Street in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thorold Stone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, and Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work since 1983.
This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario. Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
J&L Flooring is a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. They take great pride and provide elite customer service and support. They are a specialty flooring and decor boutique shop with a beautiful showroom, great pricing, and a wide variety and truly unique selection of products. All their products are environmentally friendly and responsibly produced, so you can feel good about your flooring choices. Their goal as a local business is to build authentic relationships based on honesty and integrity that they foster with respect and authenticity. Offering a unique and wide range of quality products presented by a knowledgeable and patient team, they connect with our customers, simplifying the process to make your life easier and to make your home more beautiful. Visit them at 4424 Montrose Road in Niagara Falls or find out more at jnlflooring.com. If you think you can get a better deal anywhere else, you don't know Jack at J&L Flooring.
Hey, this is Ryan Strom.
This is Carter Verhage.
This is Brendan Perlini.
This is Phil Tomasino.
You're listening to the Dog Pound Podcast,
the official podcast of the Niagara IceDogs.
And welcome back to part 2 of today's Dog Pound Podcast episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Dog Pound Podcast. Stay up to date with all of our IceDogs coverage, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you those that are tuned in on our video version. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to our loyal audio listeners on whatever audio platform you choose to listen to us today. It'll be nice to be back there at the rink. We'll be doing our pregame videos and pregame hits with Christian as well. Maybe some bench interviews for the pregame as well. But again, when we're at the rink, we try to bring you guys different types of content. Our next postgame show, though, won't be until that following Sunday against the Peterborough Pete. So look forward to giving you guys our live postgame shows once again with different types of coverage that we bring you here on the network, and maybe some other things that we're sort of in the works of trying to come up with as well. But Christian, let's start with our fan poll, because I think that's a good place to start. And again,
let's do it.
Let's start with the fan poll, because we love hearing what you guys have to say. And again, I actually have a comment that I'll read off as well with the fan poll. So what do the IceDogs need to work on most to break out of the current funk that they're in as a team? The 4 options provided were power play efficiency, discipline, offense from the back end, and getting the first goal. It was a tie between power play efficiency and discipline. Definitely, when you take 11 minors in Ottawa, you're not going to do yourself any favors. And again, the power play as of now is ranked last in the Ontario Hockey League, Christian. So does that really surprise you there?
No, not really. I think, the fans are spot on with this one. Power play efficiency is an issue. When you have the worst power play in the league, you got to score on some of those. It's not a good feeling to struggle to produce offense on a power play when you're given those chances. So I can agree with this to an extent. I do think the power play needs to get better. Do I think it's the reason the IceDogs are not winning hockey games right now? No. That is, in my opinion, not the X factor. I do think that the power play would help, again, to kind of go back to some words that I've chosen over the last few weeks. If you score 2 or 3 goals in a game on the power play, that's absolutely going to help, but you got to keep the puck out of your own net. You have to be responsible in the defensive zone. You need to get the first goal. I think that's another big one on here that probably could have also taken the cake as something that's, can be attributed to their current funk. I do think offense for the back end is of course going to be, good for a team that has such a strong, forward group. If they can find some complementary scoring, that'd be great. But I think discipline on here is a big one. And I don't mean just discipline when we're talking about taking penalties. I'm talking about positional discipline,
right?
Character discipline. Being disciplined doesn't just mean, not tripping a guy in the neutral zone. I mean,
front, as you mentioned in segment 1.
Yes. Let's start being disciplined in the sense that we're professionals. To be a professional, it means every day you do the same things. You play the same way. You give 60 minutes of hockey every night. There's no periods off, no shifts off. So I think discipline for me would be the more important one, but not just, for, giving up power plays. I mean, discipline as a whole, in the truest sense of the word disciplined, be a disciplined hockey team that shows up every shift, every night. Doesn't matter where you are, back to back or not, you're showing up ready to play. And for me, I think the discipline's a big one.
It's almost like all four of these can be correlated because the discipline leads into not getting off to a good start. They give up the first goal. They get some power plays. They take some penalties. They don't capitalize on the power plays. The penalty kill has been really good. But again, you don't want to have to be penalized 11 times in 2 games because, again, you're not playing 5-on-5 and your penalty killers are getting gassed. And again, John Jutzi's done a really good job with that penalty kill unit and credit to those guys on the unit. But again, it's just that you're not allowing the game to be in a good flow for you to be able to roll your 4 lines. Krys Barch has to throw out, maybe some of his better players to try to get some shorthanded opportunities. And especially when you're down by so many goals. So again, the IceDogs are just doing themselves no favors here. Again, they have 4 goals from the back end, but sort of lack that really top end power play quarterback that they still try to work through. They don't have necessarily a guy that can be a game breaker defensively, like you've seen in the league before with like Matt Schaefer and Zane Parekh, where, they really control the game from the back end. And that's not to say that the IceDogs D-core doesn't have good players on it. That's not what we're saying. They're just not those types of offensively skilled, gifted players where they're able to really control the game. They play a solid 2-way game, but when you look at their 6 guys back there right now, and again, Blake Barnes is in out of the lineup. He sort of comes in and plays a power play role when he plays, but he's only played 5 games. So that collective unit leads to the lack of efficiency on the power play. We saw them try 5 forwards. That didn't work. So I just think that, that this team has a lot of things that they need to work through. Again, a quarter into the season now, as you mentioned, it's not the beginning of the year anymore. But when you break it off into segments, Krys Barch has some work to do with this unit. And this is a really big character building, last couple of weeks for them, because how are they going to respond from this now? And how are they going to go into a tough stretch against 3 really good opponents? Because this is really going to showcase and show you sort of where they stack up within the Ontario Hockey League standings, right? Because now you go from 2nd to 5th, and then all of a sudden what happens next?
Right. That's not a hill that you want to have to climb, going from 5th back up to 2nd, and then, hopefully not sliding further down the lineup. But yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you, Brandon. I think all 4 of these are pretty well correlated. Discipline keeps you off the penalty kill. Getting the first goal also a result of starting on time. Offense from the back end would help with the power play efficiency, and the power play efficiency would help with offense from the back end. If your power play scoring, whoever's on the blue line is probably getting points. So, I think it's a little bit of a kind of a circular motion there. So I'm good for the fan poll. I think, we kind of covered it. Yeah, discipline for sure. You got to be playing 60 minutes.
I do want to read a comment from Dan Caputo, a loyal listener. He said, right now, the Dogs power play unit is the biggest issue. I don't know that they keep the stats, but I'm sure that they're one of the worst teams for giving up shorthanded goals. That's part and parcel with the fact that they have a hard time maintaining the O-zone on the power play. Their discipline is getting a bit better, and when they stay out of the box, they play good hockey. Ottawa 1, Kingston 1 and 2. But when they're giving up double on the power play chances, even at 85% PK isn't going to be enough to prevent giving up 1 to 2 goals a game. So thank you, Dan, for your continued listenership to our show as well. And again, we're always looking for fan engagement as well. Get your voices heard for our shows here. And, again, the IceDogs, have a lot that they can look at here and a lot that they can, try to work through. But I think it's a good time right now to go to IceDogs head coach Krys Barch for his wrap-up thoughts on the weekend. And again, that is, as always, Inside the Coaches Room is brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Center, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their up-to-date job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. Here's what Krys Barch had to say with our colleague Bill Poitras of BPSN following the weekend road trip up in Ottawa and Kingston.
I know you guys things aren't going exactly the way you want right now, but is there something, that you could put your finger on in all the games that is not going the right way, or is it just a couple different things that are different nights type thing?
I would say this, I would say number one, every team goes through some sort of a little stretch there that it's not exactly how you want it.
Right.
I do look at, I don't really look at stretches. I look at games as individual stories.
Okay.
It's a reset after every one. If I look at a couple takeaways, things that we've done well, I am very satisfied with, say, a performance of Ryan Roberk and how he's moved along since the beginning of the year. I think he led our team in turnovers last night. His work ethic back on pucks, his work ethic driving towards nets. He's just not relying on a shot. He's just not a scorer. He's doing other things for us. So for me, some of those personal development pieces have been real positives. I think even Sebastian Delelch, great contest over the last 3. You got a Liam Spencer who's really come on, as a real big force for us back on their D-core. I do look at, Riley Patterson, what he's brought to the group. I see a lot, even Yermolenko and Robertson, they've done real solid things for us on the back end. So for me, I look at each contest as its own story. I think maybe some patterns. I think discipline. I think we when you're, last night we're killing 3 5-on-3s. That's not a recipe for success.
No.
Now, I will say I question, some of these decisions. Why are we 5-on-3, in the first 10 minutes of a hockey game? And why is the same calls that are moved towards us not given to the other team in probably worse situations? There was a cross check on Edgar at the end of a period.
I saw that.
Yeah, and it's just okay. So for me, it's hey, we've got to be more disciplined. Yes, we can't let the lack of consistency in calls create that emotional reaction. So we've got to control that. So I think discipline is maybe a pattern that we've got to move from. I think, again, we did pull our goalie on a 5-on-4 to create a 5-on-4 last night. I think that was a positive. They scored on it.
Right.
But we do need more consistency and effectiveness from a power play. And then I think just we need to do a better job defending in our D zone. I think, and I would want, outside of some of these performances from the D-men I've talked about, I think Resnicker's, had a real solid elements of performance. I need more from some of my vets at that back end of my D4. I think just we need progression. We need a little bit more from that side of things. Again, each contest is its own story. So for me, there's different things, different night. I look at Kingston. I would want to expect that we walk away with 2 points on 9 out of 10 nights outside of that one. I thought our performance was very solid. I thought we did a great job dictating play, creating scoring chances, defending in zone and off the rush. Ottawa, I got to give Ottawa credit. They play a very structured, disciplined game. And I think a lot of those elements that we saw against or in Ottawa is what we need to bring on a consistent basis to our group.
Yeah. Now, when a team is kind of, maybe not where you want it to be, how do you deal with that, Christy? Do you bring the hammer down more, or is it more teaching, or does it kind of depend on the situation? Because sometimes a team can get a little bit fragile when things aren't going quite the way they want them to,
Yeah. I think number one, you want to positives. There are elements for, like you spoke of the hammer, but I think this generation, and I think just individuals in general, you build people more through positive than you do negative. Right. So I think that's a mindset of just make sure you're building individuals. We want to build individuals with respect to their skill set. We want to build individuals with respect to their mindset, and we want to build individuals with respect to confidence. And I think players that don't have confidence, you look at, do you want a Wayne Gretzky at a quarter confidence, or do you want, a third liner at 100% confidence? I think sometimes the third liner at 100% confidence is more effective than an elite player with little.
Kevin Heat, how close is he to coming back?
He'll be back. He just illness.
Oh, okay.
So, I think just number one, getting him healthy, and then number two, this time of year, keeping our team healthy.
There was IceDogs head coach Krys Barch on Inside the Coaches Room. Christian, what were your takeaways from what the head coach had to say with our colleague Bill Patras?
I think it's great because his takeaways were similar to mine. Play a defensively responsible game. Take away passing lanes. Be harder to score against. And, he targeted some of his veteran guys on the back end. He said, you know what? We got to be better. There's positives, of course. And, he harped on some of those positives. We all know there's positives. There's lots of positives. 100%. It's a good team. There's going to be lots of positives. The job for us, people like me, and for people like Krys Barch, is to identify the negatives. What can be better? Defensively, this team can be better. 100% can be better. They can absolutely be more disciplined. We talked about that. He talked about that. Show up ready to play. Don't let the ups and downs of the game get to you. Be a disciplined professional hockey team who gives 100%, 60 minutes, regardless of what happens. We just play. It's something that Mike Sullivan said to his Stanley Cup winning team in Pittsburgh. Doesn't matter what happens, up or down, just play. Just play hockey the way you know how to play. And I think this IceDogs teams need a little bit of Mike Sullivan. They need some of that preaching in their locker room. You got to believe in the skill set that you have. You got to be disciplined and absolutely have to clean some things up in the defensive zone. But for me, that's about it. I do like him giving Ryan Robrick a bit of credit.
Yep.
Like we talked about, he did play a great stretch of hockey. The 8-game point streak comes to an end, but it's more than that. The defensive responsibility, the maturity of his game, really building that 200-foot profile and resume, for some of these NHL scouts. The work ethic is there. You see him going to the greasy areas, so those are really positive things and encouraging. And then, for Reisnecker, to see him producing and, finding his way in the Ontario Hockey League as well. So just a couple takeaways for me. I would say discipline being the big one. That's kind of the narrative for me. This whole episode for me, just, they need to be more disciplined.
And I liked when Bill asked him about teams getting fragile, going through tough stretches, right? When things aren't going well, you keep your head down or do you keep your head up? And Krys Barch just said that we need to reiterate the positives with, the newer generation, building them up is the way to go. So, I think that was a really good question by Bill, just to ask sort of, the fragile, if a team can go fragile during these stretches and how you navigate really, do you really want to harp on X's and O's when you're going through a tough stretch, or do you really need to showcase, here's what we're doing well, and here's how we can do more of that in these other areas? Because it's just such a fine line, coaching, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, that Bill makes and that Krys spoke on is that, you have to kind of know, what kind of team you have and what they're going to respond to. And obviously Krys knows how to communicate with his guys. And I have no issues believing that he'll, do what's best for his team and what's best for the coaching staff. And, they're going to figure it out here. We've talked about this. It's a talented team. There's no reason why this team doesn't find success. There's no reason why, we're, competing for a Central Division title. You know what I mean? At the end of the regular season. So it's going to come. But for me, main takeaways, just the discipline. And I think that some of that discipline is, can also be applied to the coaching staff. I think, when you're coaching a young team, discipline is tough, right? And they obviously are doing everything that they can. And, but I do think that, once, the coach gets more familiar with the group, again, we've talked about how, early in the season, it's more of an excuse. We're kind of getting deeper in it now, but the longer Krys Barch spends, with some of these guys, the more he's going to understand who they are, the easier it's going to get to communicate, the more fluid things are going to be resolved on the bench and off. So I think, again, it's a work in progress, and to Krys Barch's point, don't get too hung up on the negatives. The positives are there and just keep improving, every day get better. And
yep,
I think this team is going to do just that.
Yeah, defending in their end zone that you mentioned a lot in the show is something that he definitely is going to work on at practice, I think. And you'll see a different team up there when they play Brantford on Thursday. But he did mention for, those conspiracy theorists out there about Kevin he's fine. The captain's fine. He'll be back in the lineup on Thursday. Everybody goes through an illness. He wasn't a healthy scratch. He wasn't a trade. Everybody can just put their tinfoil hats away. Okay, Kevin, he was ill this weekend. He'll be back in the lineup on Thursday. So if you go to the game, you can expect to hear Rod Mahood announcing Kevin back in the lineup for the Niagara IceDogs. So
beautiful.
Before we get out of here, Christian, just want to get a quick bit of news out here because we did have a trade that came through after we had recorded last week. Again, this almost a week later, but again, with the timing of recording and everything, the IceDogs did trade a young goaltender, Matthew Humphreys, to the Oshawa Generals, along with a 2026 7th round pick In return, they get Brantford's 4th in 2026 and Sioux's 7th in 2028. So they swap 7ths with a 2-year gap there, and they get a 4th-round pick for Matthew Humphreys, the guy that was a 3rd-round pick for the Ice Dogs in the 2024 draft. And again, down with the Aurora Tigers, getting some seasoning, but sounds like he wants more of an opportunity, and maybe we'll get it with a young Oshawa team that's going through a massive rebuild there. Maybe he competes for at least the backup job, but as well as Robertson and Yermolenko have played this year, Christian, as much as we didn't want to see Humphreys go in his limited action. We've seen, some really strong potential from him. It just seemed like the writing was on the wall with what Robertson and Yermolenko have given them.
Yeah, no, I think this is a move that had to happen for both camps. I think for the Ice Dogs, that's a guy that, wants ice time. He's in a stage of his development where, he's looking to play. He wants to play in OHL games, whether that be as a starter or as a backup. So for Matt Humphreys, a great opportunity for him. I know Oshawa's having some goaltending issues right now. Their backup is certainly in question. So I think for him, continuing to play in the OJHL to get, more reps. And then at some point, get into some games with the Oshawa Generals will be really great for him. And then for Niagara, we get some picks back. I think Frank Evola was very aggressive with some of his draft picks earlier in the season. So it's kind of nice to recruit some draft stock over the next couple of years. Always a good thing. And of course, for Matt Humphreys, nothing but good things to say about him. Fantastic guy, off the ice, with my limited interaction with him as a media guy, just chatting with him, outside the locker room and around the concourse during warmups, just a great young man and a really, really funny guy. Give him a lot of credit. He
wasn't a typical goalie. Not a typical
goalie. Very charismatic.
Yes.
And very colorful. Big smile on his face, ear to ear. So to you, Matt, it was great to have you in our presence, around the rinks, and we wish you nothing but the best, in Oshawa and Aurora, and to your family as well. Thank you for being, loyal listeners. We know that, Matthew's father is a big fan of the show. So to you as well, I guess congratulations on, having a fantastic young hockey player like Matt, and good luck kind of the rest of the way. But I do think this was a trade that was necessary for both sides.
Yeah, it's almost like a really good buy low trade for the Oshawa Generals. They can really, turn Matt Humphreys into a solid goaltender. It's his draft year as well. We'll see if that possibly comes up as well. But again, with the Ice Dogs, I think their vote of confidence is in Charlie Robertson and Vladislav Yermolenko, and they've shown that with trading a very promising young goaltender here. So that's it, Christian. I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention. We'll be back for another show next week, recapping hopefully, some stronger results against some two really good teams that the Ice Dogs are chasing now in Barrie and Brantford. But I'll give you final thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think no real final remarks or closing thoughts. I think I'm excited for the week to come. I think the Brantford game is massive, so it's going to be a dog eat dog game. It's a pun in there. So hopefully the Ice Dogs can be the bigger dog with the bigger stick, and let's go out there. Let's get it done. Like you said, this is a really important couple of weeks. By extension of that, really important month. A nice homestand coming up in December. So I think you really want to take care of business. On home ice. On Thursday, you really want to put yourself in a good spot to continue to make waves in the Eastern Conference, climb back up the power rankings, and try to challenge Barrie at the top of the Central. And I think it all starts this weekend. You got 2 important games. Go out there and go get them done.
And have Ryan Robrick, finish off strong before he leaves us for going out to the USA CHL Prospects Challenge in Lethbridge and Calgary. So I believe this will be his final week before he goes out there. So they'll be without him for that little last bit of November. But again, they're going to have to have some guys step up and step in for big contributions without number 25, but should be there this weekend. And again, for you guys listening, just so you're aware, if the Ice Dogs do win either of these games the next day, you can go to any of the 3 of our great Niagara region location global pet food stores in Fonthill, Niagara Falls, and Scott Street in St. Catharines, and you get your dog a free dog treat, and hopefully they don't run into a net like our Bones did. But Regular Bones is back. I heard the backup Bones is in concussion protocol still, but regular Bones is back after what was a very viral moment for the IceDogs mascot. But again, we always love the lighter stuff on this show as well when we can. Not always just analyzing what can be somewhat not the easiest thing to do sometimes.
Yeah, no, and again, I will provide the disclaimer that I feel like is necessary. These guys are incredible hockey players. Okay. So I will say this and I will say that, and I will be my typical critical and pessimistic self, but that's me trying to create good content as a media guy and trying to analyze these games. But that doesn't mean that the IceDogs are not a good team with a lot of fantastic positives and a lot of fantastic hockey players. So I will put that out there.
And that's it for us. So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of your Niagara IceDogs, proudly brought to you by Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family in their 3 great Niagara region locations. Thank you to those that have watched us on the video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell as you see right on the screen there. And thank you to those that chose to listen to us in your favorite on-demand audio platform. For Christian Simmons, my name is Brandon Caputo. That's going to be it, and we'll talk to you guys next week following the games against Barrie and Brantford.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.